Daf Yomi, Tractate Menachot 14a, top of the page, with the words Ela iyam l'tregufinin u'misalpi. But if you say that Rabbi Yossi holds that the right and left thighs of an offering are considered two distinct bodies, and therefore pigul intent with regard to one does not render the other pigul, then in the case of the two loaves, would the intentions concerning both loaves combined to render them both pigul? Hamani, Rabbihi, Detanya Shoket, Lechol Chatzi Zayis, Machal Lazo, Michal Lazo, Vechein Chamecho, Lechol Chatzi Zayis, Michal Lazo, Rabbi Omer. Omer Ani, Shezeh Kasher. Rav Huna responds, one cannot infer anything from this braita with regard to the opinion of Rabbi Yossi, as in accordance with whose opinion is this braita. It is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, as it is taught in another braita with regard to one who slaughters one of the lambs brought as peace offerings on Shavuot, with the intent to consume half an olive bulk from this loaf the next day, and similarly he slaughtered the other lamb with the intent to consume half an olive bulk from that second loaf the next day. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi says, I say that this offering is valid as his intentions do not combine. Taima di'amar chatzi chatzi, avlam al-gezahis mishteim mitztareh. Rav Huna continues, it may be inferred that the reason why the priest's intentions do not combine is that his intent was said with regard to a half, meaning he slaughtered each lamb with the intent to consume half an olive bulk from one loaf the next day. But if he said during the slaughter of each of the lambs that he is slaughtering it with the intent to consume an olive bulk from both of them, then the halves combine to render the offering pigul. V'Rebbi aliv deman, I aliv derabanan, afil b'achas behen nami, I aliv Rabbi Yossi hadar kushiyan leduchte. The Gemara asks, and as for Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, who says that the two loaves are pigul only if he has intent with regard to an amount equal to an olive bulk from both of them combined, in accordance with whose opinion is his statement, if it is in accordance with the opinion of the rabbis of the Mishnah, who hold that the pigul intent with regard to one loaf renders both loaves pigul, then even if his intent was with regard to only one of them, both loaves should be pigul. And if it is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yossi, who holds that pigul intent with regard to one loaf does not render the second loaf pigul, then our difficulty returns to its place. If Rabbi Yossi holds that the right and left thighs are considered two distinct bodies, how can intentions with regard to two halves of an olive bulk combine to render both loaves pigul? The Gemara responds, actually, Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi's statement is in accordance with the opinion of the rabbis, and do not say that the braita states it is not pigul unless one has the intent of pigul with regard to both of them in the feminine form, whereby the braita would be referring to the loaves. Rather, the braita states with regard to both of them in the masculine form, meaning unless he slaughters both lambs with pigul intent, and in such a case, even if his intent was with regard to only one of the loaves, the offering is pigul. The Gemara adds, and this braita serves to exclude the opinion of Rabbi Meir, who says in the Mishnah on 16a, one renders an offering pigul by means of intent during the sacrifice of half a permitting factor. For example, if one slaughtered one of the lambs with the intent to consume the 2 loaves the next day, the loaves are pigul. The Braita teaches us that this is not the halacha. The Gemara asks, if so, then what is the meaning of the emphasis in the Braita, there is never liability? Granted, this phrase is understandable if you say that the Braita means that the loaves are not pigul, unless he has intent with regard to both of the loaves and both of the lambs, meaning they are pigul only if he slaughters both lambs with the intention to partake of both loaves the next day. In that case, the Braita is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yossi, and it comes to exclude the statements of both Rabbi Meir and the rabbis. And this is the reason that the Braita states there is never liability, to emphasize that Rabbi Yossi disagrees with both of these opinions. But if you say that the Braita is in accordance with the opinion of the rabbis, and that it serves to exclude only the opinion of Rabbi Meir, for what reason does the Braita stress there is never liability? The Tana would not use such a word to exclude merely one opinion. Rather, it must be that the Braita is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yossi. If so, then the difficulty raised against Rabbi Huna, who says that pigul intent concerning the right thigh does not render the left one pigul, remains unresolved. See, here's my question is, why is there unresolved questions, but no teku? Yes, it remains unresolved, but there's no teku. And sometimes they choose to give it a teku. And sometimes they say kashya. And sometimes they say tiyufta de whoever, tiyufta. It was just arbitrary? Did they just, or is there some kind of like protocol to that? That's my question. Ve'od ha'omer Rav Ashi ta'ashema Rabbi Amer Mishum Rabbi Yossi pigel v'davar hanaseh b'chutz pigel v'davar hanaseh b'ifnim lo pigel. And furthermore, didn't Rav Ashi say, come in here in refutation of the opinion of Rav Huna from the Braita? Rabbi Yehuda Nasi says in the name of Rabbi Yossi that if, while performing the sacrificial rites for the bulls or goats, which are burned as an offering, the priest had an intention that can render the offering pigul with regard to a matter that is performed outside the sanctuary, meaning in the temple courtyard, he has rendered the offering pigul if his intention was with regard to a matter that is performed inside the sanctuary or the Holy of Holies, he has not rendered the offering pigul. Ketzad haya omed b'chutz v'yamach hareini shoichel l'manas l'azot midamay l'macham v'lo pigel shemachshava b'chutz v'davanas b'ifnim haya omed b'ifnim v'amar הריני מעשה על מנס להקטיר אמורין למחור ישפוך שיריים למחור לא יפיגל שמחשבה בפנים בדבר הנעשה בחוץ. The Braita elaborates how so. If he was standing outside when slaughtering the animal and said, I hereby slaughter the animal with the intention of sprinkling its blood tomorrow inside the sanctuary, he has not rendered the offering pigul. The reason is that when one has an intention outside with regard to a matter that is performed inside, he has not rendered the offering pigul. Likewise, if he was standing inside when sprinkling and said, I hereby sprinkle the blood of the sin offering in order to burn its sacrificial portions on the external altar tomorrow, and pour out its remainder on the base of the altar tomorrow, he has not rendered the offering pigul, as he had an intention inside with regard to a matter that is performed outside. ולהקטיר לימון למאכל, פיגל שמחשבה בחוץ, ידבון, הנעשה בחוץ. But if he was standing outside and said, I hereby slaughter the animal with the intention to pour out the remainder of its blood tomorrow, or to burn its sacrificial portions tomorrow, he has rendered the offering pigul, as he had an intention outside with regard to a matter that is performed outside. Pigoli dam mi pagel vatzanan elu devarim she'in chayovin aleim mishum pigul hakoy misalomoin avatzoires uminchas kohanim uminchas nisochim uminchas koil Mashiach v'adam. The Gemara analyzes this brayta with regard to the case where one slaughtered the offering with the intent to pour the remaining blood the next day. What could be rendered pigul? If we say the blood could be rendered pigul, one can ask, does blood become pigul? But didn't we learn in the mission in Zvachim 42b? These are the items for which one is not liable to receive karet due to the prohibition of pigul: the handful, the frankincense, the incense, the meal offering of priests, the meal offering accompanying the libations brought with an animal offering, the meal offering of the anointed priest, and the blood. Rather, it is obvious that the brayta means that it is the meat of the offering that could be rendered pigul. Now consider, and if there in the brayta where he did not have intent with regard to the meat itself, as his intention was not to partake of the meat the next day, but to pour the remaining blood the next day, and yet Rabbi Yossi said that the meat is rendered pigul, then here, where he has intent to partake of the right thigh the next day, which is part of the offering itself, is it not all the more so that if he had intent of pigul with regard to the right thigh, he has rendered the left thigh pigul as well? And furthermore, doesn't Ravina say, come in here in refutation of the statement of Ravuna from the Mishnah 13a? In a case, someone removes a handful from the meal offering with intent to partake of its remainder, or to burn its handful on the next day, Rabbi Yossi concedes in this instance that he has rendered the offering pigul and he is liable to receive karet for partaking of it. אילו דבורים שאין חייבים עליהם משום פיגול, הכל בית כולי, אלא פשיטה לפוגל ישיריים השתה, ומה עושים לחושב בו בשיריים גופי. Turning to 14b now. מפלגלי החדך שיב בו בזה ביחה, גופי לא יכול שכן. Rav continues, when one removes the handful with the intent to burn its handful, what can be rendered pigul? If we say that the handful could be rendered pigul, does the handful become pigul? But didn't we learn in the Mishnah in Zvachim 42b, these are the items for which one is not liable to receive karet due to the prohibition of pigul? The handful, so we see it doesn't. Rather, it is obvious the remainder could be rendered pigul. Now consider, if there in the Mishnah where he did not have intent with regard to the remainder itself, meaning to partake of the remainder of the day, now 14b on the top, and yet Rabbi Yossi says the remainder is rendered pigul, then here, where he does have intent to partake of the right thigh the next day, which is part of the offering itself, is it not all the more so both thighs should become pigul? We'll continue with the next video.